So what the hell is this all about? This video is about levels of thinking. It is theoretical, which is fascinating, and it also has colorful jokes. I use this diagram a lot in my videos because it helps explain some of the wild things that people say and do. It's based on the work of several researchers. I'm trying to make it easier to read for a wider audience. This is my interpretation of a model of consciousness that I studied. It includes quadrants, levels, lines, states, and types. Today I'm talking about levels. I want to make a big, long video explaining each level in detail, but for now I'm just going to do this short version to get it out of the way and get the ball rolling. But before we get started, here are some misspelled vegetables because I'm told that it helps if I'm cute. Here's a cactus. So these levels...
This guy's channel is called Whole Math. This video right here has over 1 million views, so I'm assuming that it's good. Let's go through and break it down.
Are stages of psychological development. They have been studied by numerous researchers. Some of the most famous models come from Jean Piaget. Here's a snapshot of his work. And Abraham Maslow, who had the hierarchy of needs.
Right.
Everybody is born down here, and nearly everybody gets up to at least this stage by adulthood. There are many factors that determine how you will develop and when, including your surroundings, your choices, your culture, and the brain you were born with. These are the quadrants. They are different ways of looking at reality. In this case, this would be your mind, your brain, your culture, and your society. They all happen at the same time because the mind is the brain, and culture is a lot of minds, and society is what those minds do.
Constantly happening.
I should also say that people are never really in a level. You just slowly develop the ability to think at higher levels as you gain experience, but we all use the lower levels every day. When you have to use the bathroom, for example, that's a level 1 process. It's not a complex style of thought, it's just a feeling or an urge. So some people make it up to higher stages and some people never do. Most people on Earth spend most of their time in these 4 stages, and this one is only very common in modernized places. And it's the first stage where you can adopt a world-centered level of understanding, which means understanding how people think the way they do based on where they're from. Before that level, there are right and wrong ways of thinking, so you would either be doing it right or you're not,
no
and then
gray
they
areas.
would say you're either doing it right or you're not. After that, it's more like, well, maybe I would think that way if I was from there, or maybe I would be more like you if I lived your life. That's where global thinking begins. Speaking of global thinking...
that's, first thing I thought of right there is like children, right? If you say, let's go to a kindergartner, and you say, is it bad to steal? Yes or no? The majority of kindergartners with, parents and teachers and like the majority of them are just going to be like, yes, it's bad to steal. But what if you enter in the idea that, well, this family is hungry and the father of this family got laid off from their job or they were recently robbed, right? For most kindergartners, they would still say, yes, stealing for food is bad. But if you put that same question in front of, like, let's say high schoolers, with a general more mature level of thinking to consider people outside of themselves, what that they're going through, be able to have empathy for people, you'll get much different answers. Let's keep going.
I hope it's also a limited time that we stay in these lower levels of thinking. Let's talk about what they are and how they work and how to move on. Before I get started, I should say that higher does not always mean better. Some people watch my videos where I talk about my mistakes and they say, oh, you think you're at a high level? You sound like a jerk. But higher doesn't mean better person. It means more aware.
Conscious.
So here's the lower level of awareness, seeing things. And then as you go higher in the levels of awareness, it becomes much more complex. You're seeing people, seeing almost into infinity.
Which is, for human beings, a... horrific thing to consider. Imagine, because like, listen, if your ultimate goal in life is to be happy, to have kids, to be in a relationship with a loving young woman who's really a ride or die for you, right? Why would you then want to be the seer of all things? It seems as though your level of awareness would constrict you from that degree of joy or happiness, where, especially if the things that you see, if they're uncontrollable in nature, right? One of the quickest ways to get stressed out is trying to control the uncontrollable, right? And you'll begin to see when you get to these higher levels of awareness or consciousness that many of the things that happen around us are uncontrollable. Just keep going.
And so when I make mistakes in here, I usually know exactly why they're happening. I usually can say things like, I choose women who probably will not stick around. Why? Because I don't think I can support them anyway. Well, why does that matter? Well, usually most of them want a higher level of support that I can provide. And why does that matter? Well, it doesn't feel good when they leave because I can't support them. Okay, well, why do those feelings matter? Can you change it some other way? Can you get a better job or something? Well, I tried to do that. I'm doing the best that I can. Is there some way that you can change the way you try to get money from the world? Well, I've already done everything I can here, and this kind of gets fuzzy. So why am I spending time with the wrong woman comes back to this experience that I've had over and over and over again, and I haven't been able to fix. It's
all my Six Sigma, green belts, black belts out there. This might look a little bit familiar. He's using the 5 whys technique in order to understand the problem behind the situation that he's encountering. I find videos like this so fascinating when you begin to see some of the scenarios or structures or frameworks that are put into place, such as from consulting agencies, right? Like the Big Four, McKinsey and Accenture, into dating mechanisms or mechanics. Very interesting. Let's keep going.
The ability to see through what's going on in your mind and also to see through similar levels of complexity in what's going on in the world around you. So it's not about being good, it's about getting it. Moving up in the levels does not always make you more effective. In fact, this level is famous for making people into hippies. This is the point in development where you begin to understand that everyone has their own way of seeing things. And so who's to say what we should and should not do? This is an illustration of an interaction from each level. This girl is getting validation from a guy that she's not interested in. So she knows how to get the validation, and then she stands back and she can plan how to give less to get even more.
Yeah.
And then she looks at that and asks, well, is that the right thing to do? Not really. But am I going to do it anyway in this circumstance because I think it would be better overall? So that's in order. Wanting something, knowing how to get it from someone else, knowing how to control the interaction, knowing whether that's right or wrong according to the rules that you live by, and then becoming the author of your own sense of right and wrong. And then when you take another step back to this hippie level, it's like, well, who is anyone to judge my choice?
Oh, the hippie level. I think that's why I don't like hippies as much, is because, you know, they live in free spiritness and they kind of create their own identities outside of the formulaic structure or framework of a society. Generally, using facts, data, and statistics, what is the best way or the most accurate way to attack some situations in life. When you get to that 6th point, it can bog you down because your perception of reality is based off of each individual perception outside of the facts, data, and statistics. Very interesting. Lego.
My choices are right for me, and so there isn't really such a thing as right and wrong. It's just what works for me. That's why they call that level the individualist.
I don't like
those people.
Different
people go through the levels differently. And when I went through this one, it really stressed me out. I felt like I couldn't get my feet on the ground. I saw so many different ways of seeing the world, so many different philosophies, so many different life choices, and I didn't know how to pick one. And if I can't pick one, then I can't get anywhere. So I would say, I don't know what to do. And people would say, just pick something. And I would say, how do I know what to pick? And they would go, pick something you like. And I would go, how do I know what I like? So I really like to plan things out. I like certainty. But at this level, you realize that you're never going to know what happens until you try it. So it goes what I see, what you see, what works for me, what works for us. And then, hey, look, those people have a different thing that works for them. That's level 5, when you can say, okay, I'm like this because I'm from here, and you're like that because you're from there. And then at level 6, it's like, well, where I'm from is really just myself. Everybody is just from their self. And so how can one self have an idea that's better than any other self? Whereas at an earlier level, you might be able to say something like, well, my dad was an accountant, and so I'm an accountant. That's just what we do. And you don't have to deal with any of this uncertainty.
So again, to my earlier point, going up in the levels may be less happy because you can construct your way to confuse your way, right? Because there's so many options based off of so many options. Again, being more aware. But if you're less aware, it can actually be a much more joyous or happy experience because there's much more of a direct path of what do you choose going forward. Interesting. It's almost like there's a degree of balance in life when it comes to consciousness. I think this is also why sometimes you see the ultra conscious have the most unhappy lives, right? I wonder if there's statistics regarding the degree and the level of consciousness and wanting to self-delete. We all understand that self-deletion is not correlated to level of money. You have rich people with, I might say, a high degree of self-awareness or consciousness being as unhappy in life and wanting to end it as much as poor people. I think that's very interesting as well. Let's keep going.
So higher is more complex, but complex is not always good.
Better.
The way I explain it is that you can have a a really good shoe or a really bad car, and I think what I have is a sinking cruise ship. So if higher is not always better, then why should we grow? Well,
and side note as well, I actually think that higher not always being better is why religion works so well for a lot of different people, because it kind of gives you this assumed level of consciousness based off of something that was created before you, but it's a rubric of things that you should do or virtues that you should believe in or morals that you should indoctrinate within your life to set you on a more controlled path. If you do this, then that which is positive, according to this book that was created thousands of years before you, what is going to equate to a degree of happiness because you're doing these things what the book says that you should be doing. All right, let's keep going.
Because higher is usually better. If everyone was at these lower levels, we would not be able to have grocery stores and electricity. We have a complex world, and it requires complex thinking. And some problems cannot be solved at the level they came from.
Right.
Everybody watching this is going to have a different fingerprint of development. That means that your different lines or capacities, or the ways that you use your intelligence, are all going to be developed to different levels.
Yeah.
It's possible to be very lopsided. For example, you could have your cognitive line all the way up at 9, but your moral line all the way down at 3. You could also be higher up than another person overall, but they're still way better than you at a particular thing.
Yeah.
For example, this could be somebody who really understands history and politics to a high degree, but has low empathy, and this would be someone who kind of gets it, but is great with people. So as I go through them one by one, try to remember where you went through them and what that felt like and where you think you are now. Okay, level 1.
And let me just give a quick comment on this right here, because I've actually fallen into this as well. If you're not a person who wants to care about history or politics, and you find as though that it is not something that is a part of you and akin to things that you want to learn about, then don't be that person. Don't have other people try to tax or put things onto you that you should know. Because if you don't know this as much as I know this, then you are not as smart as me, that you're not as cognitively inclined as me. It's bullshit. And to a degree, it's a degree of manipulation, because it's a way for them to feel less secure about other things that they may not know, or make you feel less empowered because they know these things when you don't know these things. Figure out what works best for you and be the master of that. If it behooves you or it's valuable to you to learn other things outside of that, then so be it. Like, for example, the content in this side of the internet, in this side of the space, there's a lot of young men that were coming in here bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, unbeknownst to them, the importance of understanding female nature as they go off in their lives and they create relationships with women. A lot of people have upped what that was. Let's say that that's right here, because they begin to understand the importance of it going forward. So if it works for your life, work on it. If not, keep it moving. Let's go.
And this would be someone who kind of gets it, but is great with people. So as I go through them one by one, try to remember where you went through them and what that felt like and where you think you are now. Okay, level 1. I call this survive because it's just basic moment to moment. What do I need? Do I need food? Do I need sleep? It's just my own feelings, and there's no such thing as someone else's mind. If we were living in this level, we would be in small survival bands, and we would not be thinking much about each other's thoughts. We would be doing what we must in order to survive.
Yep.
Level 2, I called connect, because now you can think about what is in someone else's mind. What does this person want or need? Primitive people at this level will sometimes do rain dances or throw virgins in a volcano. I'm not sure if that's real, but it's the kind of thing you'd expect to see, because at level 2, you're realizing, okay, I have a mind and I need things, and other people have minds and they need things, so maybe it's not raining because we haven't pleased someone in the sky. Maybe the volcano is angry because it wants something, and what do I want? Virgins. So level 2 is all about what I do affects what other people think about me and what they do for me. Basically, like this. If we were living at level 2, we would be in small tribal groups, and we would be focused on safety and security and maintaining functional habits and dependable practices just day to day.
Okay.
Level 3, I called control. This level is still very popular in modern society. So at level 1, I have a mind with feelings and needs, and at level 2, I know that other people have minds with feelings and needs, and sometimes maybe I think a volcano does too. And at level 3, now I know that other people are aware that other people are aware that they have feelings and needs. So I know that these people have a relationship to each other the same way that I have a relationship to this and to this and to this and to this. Now I know he has a relationship to her. So instead of just direct connections, this creates social situations. Here is a woman seeing man bad on her phone, and then she sees the man in her life and goes, oh, wait a minute. If man bad, then maybe that man bad.
Right.
And then at level 3, you would step back and say, well, what do I do about this situation? Why is he being bad, and what can I do about this relationship? If we were living at this level, we would be living in something like the Roman Empire, a mythic, feudal, and exploitative empire. You see this level a lot in things like the mafia and in sports teams, firemen, police, military. So even though these levels 2 and 3 involve thinking about thinking, it's mostly just for the purpose of getting what you want and having power over others. Level 4 I called belong because the primary drive is to fit in. And that drive is motivated by what they call second-person perspective. So again, at level 1, you have your own feelings, urges, and needs. At level 2, you see those of others and you can react to them. But it's still all about what those feelings mean to you. And at level 3, you understand that you're in a complex social web of relationships, and you can react to those relationships and exert control over your situation. And at level 4, that's when you realize everyone is in their own situation. That's where we get the classic folk wisdom of don't judge somebody until you've walked a mile in his shoes. You are in this situation over here, but imagine if you were him in this situation over here. Maybe
empathy.
You would have done what he did too. That doesn't come online until you get the second-person perspective at level 4. When level 4 was brand new, it was basically medieval empires. It says mythic empires here, nation-states. Basically, large groups of people that lived by a set of rules that they shared, as opposed to the do what you want mentality of level 3. Level 4 focuses on good versus evil. The entry to that level is called the diplomat because of the way that they focus on acceptable behavior and social norms. That's their way of getting over the problems from the previous stage. You can tell when second-person perspective is coming online in children because they start looking in the mirror more. They start to realize, oh, I have other people looking at me the way that I look at other people and I have feelings about them. They're looking at me and having feelings about me, so I better be up to their expectations. Level 4 is the beginning of what we traditionally refer to as morality. Here again is the woman seeing man bad on her phone, and then she feels like, well, maybe this man is bad because my phone said so. She's projecting that onto him, having a negative experience, and then deciding what to do about it. I'm going to break up with this guy. He must be bad because I felt like it was true when I saw it on my phone. And then out here, she takes a step back and looks at herself as if she is a second person, which is why they call it second person perspective, and thinks, is that the right thing to do?
Right.
This is the first point where it becomes obvious that consciousness is important, because a lot of people see things on their phones or on TV and it gives them a feeling, and then they see that feeling coming from others, and then they do something about that relationship. So they might begin treating somebody poorly because they saw something on their phone that made them feel like, well, if that's happening here, it must be happening here too. And it's not until you slow down enough to get to level 4 that you can take a step back and ask yourself, is this a valuable process? The
first situation that reminded me of stages 1, 2, and 3 was, for example, the brick lady situation. Women identify man is bad. They see a circumstance and they determine that all men are bad because of this situation. And it wasn't until their bullshit was uncovered that it perhaps enhances them to get the stages 4 for them to finally have the empathy to consider anything else besides their own confirmation bias that man is bad. But I'll tell you what, if that as a politician, if you master stages 2, 3, that's really all you need for the majority of the population. And here's the thing, just as he was saying earlier, the majority of people can dip up into stage 4, but only if they want to. Stage 4, 5, 6, only if they want to. But it's a lot more comfortable to only go up to stage 3, especially if it confirms your own bias. Let's go.
That level 4 typically functions is through conformity and agreement. I believe this is the wrong way to behave. I believe this is the wrong way to behave. Agreeing on what's right and wrong and creating a set of rules and following them can solve some of these earlier problems, but also there are an infinite number of ways to decide what is right and wrong. You can have this set of rules over here or this set of rules over here, and that's where level 5 comes in. Level 5 introduces objective observation as a value. Basically, okay, you guys think A, B, C is right, and you guys think X, Y, Z is right. Well, let's figure out which one is better. And in order to do that, you have to take another step back into a third-person perspective.
Yep.
So again, the first 3 levels are all about me. And then level 4 is, if I was another person in my culture, how would I view my behavior? And then level 5 is another step back. If I was an alien or a stranger, how would I view my culture? This also enables you to view other cultures and sets of social norms. That's why it's global. It's the first time that you can go, oh, I get why they're like that, because they're from somewhere else. Level 5 has only really been around for a few hundred years, and it is basically where we get science and the assembly line and other forms of modern conveniences. Level 6 is where things get really fun. You might remember how it went for me. Level 5 is into objective observation, but level 6 recognizes the role of the perceiver. A different perceiver is going to equal a different perception. That brings in the fourth person perspective. So down at 1, you have me and my needs, the way I relate to others, and the way I get my way in my social situation. And then you take a step back. What does my behavior look to others around me? And what rules do we make about that? And then another step back. What would our set of rules look like to a different group of people? And then level 6, you step back again, and well, the way that you are looking is going to determine what it looks like. So when you look here, you'll see one thing, and when you look here, you'll see another thing, and when you look here, you'll see a third thing, because of who you are and where you came from. So there isn't really any way to objectively observe.
There's no right answer.
Not being able to objectively observe can feel weird. Level 6 is very new. There were a few philosophers talking at that level in the 1800s, but it didn't really show up in mainstream society until 1960s America. So because the way that you're looking determines what you're going to see, that means there are multiple perspectives that are valid, because we all have a unique personal subjective reality that's not observable to others. Basically, how do I know that the red that I see is the same as the red that you see? Maybe my red is your green. From the fourth person perspective, there's no way to know. Level 6 is a really good example of why higher development is not always necessarily better. It is a very high degree of moral development, recognizing the validity of everyone's perspective. But let's say, for example, that there's a problem going on down here. Let's say that this guy did something that is considered morally wrong in this culture. But wait a minute, he says, that's how we do it where I'm from. So when level 6 goes crazy, they start saying things like, we can't make this guy follow these rules just because he's here. He has these rules where he's from. And who are you to judge which set of rules is better?
I think upon reaching level 6, any sane person is going to drive themselves crazy if they feel like they can control things outside of their controllable view. I think that if you're a person that can unlock stage 6, if you stop caring about everybody else and kind of their ideologies, then yeah, maybe you could become a hippie. Everything can be everything, man. There's no right or wrong, man. Who am I to judge, man? Or on the far opposite side of it, you could drive yourself crazy trying to control, based off of stage 5, the facts, data, and statistics of what's right and what's wrong. But I think that there's a good sweet spot in being able to understand other ideologies as they exist and be aware of the other perspectives or types of people that have these ideologies, while still being able to compare and contrast what is actually beneficial objectively. I also think those that reach stage 6 are probably very good YouTubers, because they can take these very complex situations and have the empathy enough to understand or be aware enough other people's perspectives when in consideration of their own. Let's keep going.
We should recognize everybody's unique perspective. And that can and often does give people the idea, I guess I can just do whatever I want, because who are you to judge? That's why we have problems like this. And yeah, some of these people are unfortunate, and that's sad, but some of them are just doing whatever they want, and we now have laws that don't distinguish between them, because who are you to judge? So at this point, there is this white break in the chart, and that's because we are moving up to second tier consciousness. And what that means is that level 7 is the first level that can understand and include all the previous ones. At level 6, they still insist that they're correct and no one else is. For example, at level 4, you might have a Christian church and a Muslim mosque next door arguing over who has the true faith. But at level 6, we can all get along. We just need more understanding when that's not what either of those groups wants.
Right.
So even if level 6 says that they're about equality, they're saying we all need to be equal even if we don't want to. And it's not until level 7 that we understand how to actually give each previous level what it wants to have so that they can live in harmony.
All right, guys, I'm actually going to end the video right here. He goes on to explain a lot more of the levels. Again, I'm going to leave a link down in the description box down below so you guys can go up there and finish out the video. It gets way more complicated with way more degrees of consciousness and awareness and being able to see yourself and others around you and what you're doing. Go check it out. You won't be disappointed. I absolutely love videos like this. I love videos that attempt to explain this degree of human consciousness, where we came from, how we can develop, how our thinking can mature, how the consideration of our actions determines who we are as people, the accountability within that, and the understanding of how your actions are impacting other people. I know this type of content is slightly different than the type of content we usually go over on this channel, but let me know down in the comment box down below. Do you guys like to look at stuff like this? Because I could definitely go find some more and we can get active. Until next time, YouTube, peace.